Okay, this is a short tutorial just to demonstrate how to work with the mask. So we did this in class. I just want to kind of repeat sort of the main points of it because it's a little hard to see on the TV. Okay, so first I'm going to go and get this clip here. Okay, I'm going to drag this clip in. I only need the video. I'm not sure if it even has audio. And I'm going to keep existing settings. Okay, and then I need to go and grab my House of Cards logo. Okay, so it's just that's an EPS logo, okay, and an EPS logo has a transparency. So if I go back to here and I drag this onto my timeline, it shows up. Oh, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay, it shows up so that you can see through it because of the opacity. Okay, and now what I need to do is I'm going to bring this down in size. All the controls I need are in the effects control. Okay, so I got to click on. Notice that that didn't have anything selected. If I don't have anything selected in my timeline, nothing shows up in my effects control. If I need to change something, I need to specify what thing it is. So if I click here, I get the effects for this clip. If I click here, I get the effects for this clip. Okay? By default, because this is considered video, not audio, it's not really video, but it goes in the video track. These are the sorts of controls that we get by default. Okay, and I'm going to open these up so we can see what's there. Okay, opacity and motion are the ones we're going to be looking at. Okay, I'm going to bring the position down. Now remember that these things here toggle on and off animation. So we don't need animation for this. I'm just going to bring the size down, and I can either drag it or type in a percentage. We're going to go with 80%, and that looks okay to me. But I could have just dragged that number, and it'll change. Okay. So that's all we need to do there. It's change the scale, and we're done with that. The next thing I need to do is I'm going to be kind of talking about how to create this mask. Now, all the mask does, I can create it in different shapes. Okay, either a circle or a square, or I can draw a freehand shape. And all it's going to do is it's going to show through the shape on my graphic. Okay, so if I click on this while I've got it selected in my timeline, if I click on this circle, it's going to create a circle on my screen. And that just shows through the shape of that circle. Okay, and I can change that circle or the mask. Okay, and you can see it's just changing what's showing and what's not. It basically applies an opacity so that it can show what's here and it hides what's here on this layer. Okay, now I can change that, so I can pick these up and I can change the size of these. Okay. But I don't want to do that circle, I want it to be a square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here on my mask, okay, and hit delete on my keyboard, and that gets rid of the mask. So that mask disappears from this clip, and now we just have the original clip again. Now, of course, I don't want it to be a circle, I want it to be a square. So I'm going to click on a square, okay, or rectangle, and now you see it shows up here, okay, it gives me this mask applied to this clip. If I click on this clip, you'll see there is no mask because I haven't applied a mask to the skyline video. I've only applied a mask to this. So that's why that shows up here. If I add another mask, so say I click on this mask and I move this, say I move it like over here, and then I add another mask. This says mask 1. If I click this, it's going to add a second one called mask 2, which is a whole other mask. Okay, and so this is going to have these properties, and this is going to have these properties and size, and I've got two of them, mask 1 and mask 2. If I click on this and hit delete, okay, it's going to delete the first one we made. If I click on this and hit delete, it's going to click the second. Okay, revealing everything that's still there. It's just hidden by our mask. Okay, so let's properly add the mask in we want. So I want a 4-point mask. I want it to be a square. So I'm going to click here. It adds it right in the center of my screen, and I'm going to zoom in. Now, some people have had a little bit of, I guess, a couple questions about what this is. All this is your zoom. Like, it's just showing you, because the physical size of our video doesn't change, right? If I go to 100% just to view it on my screen, this is still fitting in the window that I have, okay? But I can change what I'm looking at. I can see it at 10%, I can see it at 100%, I can see it at 400%, okay? Just depending what I need to do, okay? So same thing is happening here. Here I'm viewing at 400%. It's not changing the video size physically, it's just my zoom. Okay, so I'm just zoomed in. All right, so I'm going to go to the hand tool here so I can move this. Okay, and notice that this hand tool affects how I can move my my video around in my monitor. Okay, I'm going to go back to my selection tool. Now this is the kind of default shape, but I can pick up these points here and I can change the size. You saw it was a circle before. I want it to be a rectangle, and I want it to fit that flag. So I don't need it to show any of these letters, right? That says of, from House of Cards. I only need to show or hide the flag. So I'm going to drag this so that it kind of fits around the flag properly. Around there. Okay, and you'll see that when I go over this edge, we get this like soft edge here. It kind of fades from here to here. That's a feather. Okay, and if I want to change that over here in my mask properties, over here, we've got mask feather, and I can bring that up, okay, and that's going to make it like a softer edge. Okay, so it blends softer. Or if I bring it all the way down to 0, which is what I want, then there's no soft edge, it's a hard edge. And that's what I want for this particular instance. Okay, so I'm going to bring that to here. I'm going to try and get it as close as I can. Okay, and that shows me my flag. So now when I zoom out to 100% or to fit, okay, now I'm going to click off of this so that this blue thing is not selected anymore. Okay, so now it's just showing me the flag. Okay, and if that's all I wanted, then that would be perfectly, that would be done. So now I want a couple other things. I want to animate this in so that it starts on the left, it shows the top half of the flag, and then another mask is going to start here and animate in the second part, and then the third part. Okay, and we're going to pause it at this point so that it kind of goes 1, 2. All right, so let's look at that. I'm going to click again on my House of Cards logo, and I'm going to go to my mask. Okay, here's where I want to start changing things. I'm going to zoom in so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go 400%. I'm going to go to my hand tool and just move this over so it's centered, and go back to my selection tool. All right, I need to change the position of this thing. So first, actually, I'm going to do this in 2 parts, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up in line with the red stripe, and the same thing here. I'm going to purposely go a little farther than I need to because I don't want any of that blue showing, right? I want that kind of completely hidden, like it's drawing out the line. So I'm going to go to here. Okay, that's where I want to end up. I want that to be the final point, and I want the beginning point to be like over here so that it expands out. Okay, I could also actually just move this mask like this, but the problem is that I have these letters here. Okay, and so what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that those letters are going to show. So I don't want that. Right? I need to actually physically change the size of it. So let's set up a beginning and end point. Remember that by toggling my animation and creating keyframes, I'm telling Premiere where I want to start and finish this animation on this clip. Okay, so let's go to the beginning here. And remember that I could do that as well from here. This is the beginning of my clip, and this is the end of my clip. This is just another way of viewing the timeline. Okay, so I'm going to drag it to the beginning. And I need to animate that position. So I'm going to click here and click on Mask Path. Okay, and it's going to give me a keyframe. As soon as I do that, okay, if I turn it off, okay, it will show me right here. As soon as I click it on, it says, okay, we're doing keyframes. Okay, let's do some keyframes. And it puts a keyframe at this point, and you can see there's a little diamond kind of cut off because that's at the first frame of this animation. And I want it to be like a second or so long, so I'm gonna rough it out, and I'm gonna go about here, and I'm gonna add a second keyframe right here. Okay, so now I've got 2 keyframes on my mask. Okay, and nothing changes at this point. All it does is it has the keyframes as important points, but we haven't done anything yet. What I want to do now is I want to change the shape. So I need to click here on the mask to select it. Notice when I've selected off of it, I don't have that blue. Even if I'm looking at the clip and I've got the clip selected, if I don't click on the word mask, I don't see the mask controls here. So I got to click on the word mask. Okay. All right. So here's my first keyframe. There's my second keyframe, and I want to affect the first keyframe because I want this to be way over here. So I'm going to just pick these up. Using notice that I have my selection tool selected, okay? I'm going to move it just a little bit over this way, and just a little bit over this way. A little tricky sometimes to get those points, but that's it. As long as it's hidden, then that's okay. And then I want it to animate from here to this point in my timeline, so that is what I'm looking for right there. Okay, so it starts at that point, and it ends at this point. Okay, so that's our first one done. The only thing I need to do is check the timing. So I'm going to go here and hit play. I'm going to zoom out so I can see this. Hit play. And that's actually pretty good. But if I needed to change it, I could just pick this keyframe up. So notice that right now it takes from whatever this is, 6:09, so 6 seconds and 9 frames. It takes until just about 1 second. Okay, not quite. Okay? But if I want it to take longer, say I want it to be 2 seconds longer, I could either click here and put in a specific time. Say I want it to end here. And then I could drag this, and now it's going to start and end over that much time. So if I now hit play, it's slower because it's taking longer. Okay, so I'm just changing where this keyframe is. If I put it out all the way at the end, it's going to take even longer. Okay? All I'm doing is changing how long the keyframe starts over here and it ends like at the 10-second mark, which is quite long. Okay? All right. I'm going to undo those steps. Command Z, because I had the timing pretty close to right at the beginning. That looks pretty good. Okay, and that's about 1 second. All right, so there's our first animation. So now I need to add a second mask. So remember I created one square mask and then I made a circle mask over here early in this tutorial. Well, I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to have a second rectangular mask. So let's go to the end, the second keyframe. I'm going to go to here. Okay, and remember that these little arrows help me help me navigate on my keyframe. So if I want to align something exactly at this point, I can say I have a few keyframes and I want to go between them. Okay, I can use these to go there. All right, there's a little bit of a pause, like I don't know, maybe like a quarter-second pause between the ending of this and the beginning of the next, and you can affect that. But I got to add that second mask first. So I'm going to close this one. I'm just minimizing it. It's still there, but I'm going to click here and it's going to create my second mask. There it is. Okay, so there's our second mask. Let's zoom in. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to drop this feather down to 0 because I don't want any soft edges, and I'm going to reposition this to show the second half of my flag. Okay, and now if I go too low, notice that this is the other mask, right? This is only showing this part, right? So I want to just make sure that I'm overlapping this a little bit. Because this has already been, the top half has already been revealed, if I reveal more, it doesn't hurt. I could do this like up here. It doesn't make a big difference because all I'm going to be doing is this, right? So it's just going to move in and reveal there. So if I'm kind of too high up here, no big deal, all right? Okay, so the next thing we're going to do after that is we're going to animate this. So I want this to happen just after this point, right? Like a couple of frames after. So I'm going to move up to about here. Okay, so I'm just navigating in my timeline. Where do I want this to happen? I'm going to go about here, and I'm going to set a keyframe on this mask at this point. So I got to turn on my animation by toggling this animation here. I click this. I get my animation keyframe. I'm going to go another kind of second or so, a little less. I'm kind of doing this by eye, but I could do it specifically by time. If I went and got the original and like timed it, I could get it exactly. So I'm going to go about here. I'm looking at this space and going, all right, I want to be around here. I'm going to set my second keyframe. I'm going to go, there's going to be a bit of a pause for like a second, not a second, a fraction of a second. I'm going to lock another keyframe and then another keyframe. Because what I want to happen, okay, is I want this to go, it's going to go like this. It starts here, okay, that's our first keyframe, and then it goes 1 to 2, it pauses here, and then 3 starts again, and 4 finishes. Okay? So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the sort of beat that we're looking at. Alright, so I need to go back to my first keyframe, to here, okay, and I'm just going to do the same thing I did, which is move this to here, and this across here. Okay, that's our start point. Now the second point it wants to get to is not all the way across, right? When I get to here, I don't want this all the way across again, so I want to bring this back. So it only gets to where that blue is. And all I'm doing is saying, okay, this is my second point. This is my second point in my timeline. So it's going to go from here to here, and then it's going to pause there. Now for it to pause, I can't have this second animation. I've got to change this second keyframe as well, right? It starts here, it moves to here, it pauses here. So I've got to take this exact keyframe here, this kind of same positioning, and put it here. So I'm going to go here and bring this back so it's in line. And there's probably a better way to do this. I probably could just copy and paste this mask, but this is fine. Okay, so there's a bit of a pause right there. I'm going to spread that out a bit to about here. Maybe there, so it's a bit of a longer pause. and then it continues to the end. Okay, so let's take a look at that. I'm going to zoom out to fit. I'm going to click off of this and start back here and hit play. Mask 1 reveals, mask 2 pauses, and then continues, and that's it. We're done. Okay, the last part we need to do, I'm going to go back over here, is in the original, we have the flag comes in this animation, like it goes top half, bottom half, and then right after about this point, as soon as that finishes, the rest of the logo, the words, fade in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually copy this. So Command C. Okay, I think I can probably copy here. Copy. And then I'm going to put it here. I'm going to put it on the top layer here. So I'm going to click on this and go Edit, Paste. Oops. I'm going to lock these because I don't want it there. I want it here. Edit, Paste. Okay, so it puts it here. I'm just going to align it exactly. Okay. And now you'll notice if this is exactly the same. So this has, if I click on this or I click on this, I made a duplicate. They're exactly the same. So it has the mask. They both have the mask on them, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the mask. Okay, so notice I'm clicking on the top layer and I'm clicking on this mask. I'm going to delete this mask and delete this mask. This brings back the whole thing. But let me just show you, okay, that this is not the same as the one that we were working on. That's the one that's still there. Okay, there's that animation. And I've just put another one exactly where it was in the same position. Undo, I'm going to put it back. Okay, this is a copy of the same thing, and I've removed the masks. And the reason I've removed the masks is I'm going to have this fade in after, let me turn this off for a second, after this animates in, it goes to here, and then like right at that point, okay, I'm going to bring this in from the opacity from 0 up. Okay, so I can actually drag this to here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, and there's our first part of animation, there's our last part, and then right here, I'm going to bring this in. So I can just go, I can click on this and go to my opacity, okay, and I'm going to go that I want this to start at this point and end at, say, that point, okay. I'm going to go back to this point and bring my opacity down to 0, and you can see just like we did with volume, it brings the opacity down, and then it fades in. Oh, that didn't work, why not? Should have worked. Oh, because I have it turned off. Okay, so now it's going to start here and then fade in. Okay, just like we did with volume, you see that slider going up there. Okay, and now I bring everything zoomed out a little bit so we can see everything. Okay, we start here. We got our first animation of our mask, our second animation of our mask, and then on another layer, we fade in the opacity of the House of Cards logo, and we're done. Okay, and I could probably extend that out a little bit if I wanted to. So that it goes a little longer, okay, and I can probably do the same thing here, drag that out, and then I can fade both of them at the end. Okay, so I maybe go add a keyframe here, bring the opacity back down a couple frames in, okay, maybe here, and bring this opacity back down to 0. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Here's a good example of where I would want to align things. So now what's going to happen, notice, is I faded out the House of Cards text, but I want to fade out the flag at the same pace, right? So let me do this. Okay, so I don't want that to be stuck there. I want it to fade at the same pace. So I'm going to use these keyframes, okay, so I can navigate these keyframes, right, to the points that I want. So here's where it starts to fade out, the House of Cards, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing on this. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go to this keyframe, and I'm going to set up a opacity keyframe right here. And then I'm going to go back to this guy, navigate here to the end point, navigate down to this guy, put my second keyframe on opacity and bring my opacity down. And that's going to fade out at the same pace now because I've matched up my keyframes. Okay? Good. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, rewatch this tutorial. Good luck.